He sat at the corner table, the one near the window where the city lights reflected like dreams he once chased. His waiter's uniform was neatly folded beside him, replaced by a simple shirt that had seen better days. A plate of cheap pasta cooled before him, untouched. Around him, laughter floated, families, couples, business meetings, but Daniel ate alone. Again. Until that night, when a woman in a silk dress, glittering like the world he didn't belong to, walked up to him, leaned down, and whispered the words that would change everything: "Pretend I'm your wife." Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard right. The woman slid into the seat opposite him with the calm confidence of someone used to taking charge. Her perfume carried a faint trace of jasmine and rain, soft, expensive, distant. "Please," she murmured, her eyes darting toward the restaurant entrance. "Just go with it." Before he could reply, a group of sharply dressed people entered. One of them, a tall man with a smug smile, headed straight toward their table. The woman's fingers brushed Daniel's hand. "Smile," she said softly. "He can't see me alone tonight." So he did. He smiled like he belonged beside her. The tall man stopped by the table, his voice dripping with surprise. "Clara? You didn't tell me you were married." Clara, apparently that was her name, laughed lightly, squeezing Daniel's hand. "You never asked." Daniel nodded, playing along, heart hammering as Clara looked at him with that desperate, pleading softness only visible up close. For the next 10 minutes, they talked like a couple who knew each other's souls. She joked about his terrible cooking, he teased her about her habit of overworking, and somehow, the illusion began to feel dangerously real. When the man finally walked away, Clara let out a shaky breath, relief washing over her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You just saved me from something awful." Daniel frowned. "What was that about?" She looked down, the sparkle fading from her eyes. "Let's just say some men don't understand the word no, especially when they have power." He didn't press. Something in her voice, tired, wounded, stopped him. They sat there in silence for a moment, strangers bound by a lie that suddenly didn't feel like one. Then she smiled faintly. "You're a waiter here, aren't you?" He chuckled. "Caught that, huh?" "I notice people who work," she said softly. "Most men I know only notice themselves." It should have ended there, a strange night, a story to laugh about someday. But fate had other plans. Clara asked if she could walk him out, and Daniel, curious and strangely drawn to her, agreed. Outside, the rain had started to fall, soft and cold. She held no umbrella, so he offered his jacket. She took it, looking at him with a kind of gratitude that pierced deeper than he expected. That night, Daniel returned to his small apartment, where his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was asleep on the couch waiting for him. He brushed her hair aside, kissed her forehead, and smiled. "Daddy had a weird night," he whispered. He didn't know it yet, but that night was only the beginning. The next evening, Daniel was back at the restaurant, juggling trays and orders when he saw her again. Clara. She wasn't dressed in her glittering gown this time. She wore jeans, a cream sweater, her hair tied back casually. She smiled when she saw him. "Can we talk?" He wiped his hands nervously. "I'm working." "I know," she said, her voice gentle. "But I wanted to thank you properly." After his shift ended, they sat outside the restaurant, sharing a cup of cheap coffee that steamed between them. She told him about her life, how she'd built her business empire from nothing, how success had brought loneliness disguised as luxury. "I thought money would make me safe," she said, staring into the cup. "But it only made people see me as a prize to win, not a person." Daniel listened quietly. For once, someone who had everything was confessing how little it all meant. He told her about Lily, how his wife had passed away 3 years ago, how he worked double shifts just to keep the apartment warm and her dreams alive. "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. "You deserve more." He smiled sadly. "We make do. She's my reason for everything." Weeks passed, and what began as a lie turned into late-night talks, laughter over shared meals, and a friendship neither expected. Clara started visiting the restaurant, bringing Lily small gifts, books, paints, even a tiny piano. "For your music lessons," she said one evening, brushing Lily's curls, but soon, rumors began to spread. The staff whispered. The customers stared. And the man from that first night, the one who'd seen Clara with Daniel, returned, smirking. "So this is the lucky waiter," he said mockingly. "Clara, you've really lowered your standards." Daniel stood up, fists tightening. But Clara took his hand before he could speak. "I haven't lowered them," she said calmly. "I've finally raised them." The man sneered and left, but the damage was done. Clara's world and Daniel's collided painfully. Her board of investors questioned her decisions. His co-workers mocked him behind his back. She began to pull away, not because she wanted to, but because the pressure around her grew unbearable. One night, she showed up at his apartment, eyes red from crying. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "They'll ruin everything I built." He stood there, heartbreaking, trying to stay strong for her. "Then go," he said quietly. "You don't owe me anything." But Lily, who had been listening, walked up and tugged Clara's hand. "Don't go," she said softly. "Daddy smiles when you come. He doesn't smile like that for anyone else." Clara knelt, tears spilling down her cheeks as she hugged the little girl, and in that small apartment, something shifted. For once, Clara didn't care about the whispers, the investors, the expectations. She looked at Daniel and finally said, "Then maybe it's time I stop pretending." Months later, the restaurant was packed again, but this time, Daniel wasn't serving. He was dining with Clara, Lily giggling beside them, her tiny hands twirling spaghetti. The world around them still whispered, but neither cared, because once, a lonely waiter sat alone until a woman asked him to pretend, and somehow, that pretend moment became the truest thing either of them had ever known. And as Clara leaned across the table, smiling softly, she whispered again, "Next time, let's not pretend."